Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Kitchen Science Cooks. Today on the channel, we're going to go ahead and cook a brisket. We're going to cook it from A to Z, or if you're in Europe, we're going to cook it from A to Z. That's just my terrible dad joke for the day. Anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through the top 10 tips that you want to consider when you're putting your brisket together. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so tip number one, when you buy your brisket, buy the most expensive one you can afford. So what we have here, this is a 15.7 pound brisket. This is USDA prime. And if they would have had it, I would have bought a dry aged one, because that marbling note that you get from that fermented kind of fat note that happens with the dry age process really helps out in adding extra richness to the flavor. So I've cooked maybe 30 of these within the last, year. And I've got to say, the higher the fat content, the higher the marbling, the better your end product's going to go ahead and be. Now, we have some other tips that we're going to throw in that will really help out those of you that can't find a prime. Let's say you have a Costco or a Sam's around you, and you go there and they only have choice. That's fine. Get it. Some brisket is better than no brisket. But if they happen to have prime, and I know that that's not always the case, at least the last several times I've been to both of those stores, they haven't had it. What you want to go ahead and do is you want to check out Wild Fork. They almost always have a wide variety of products that start on the low end, your choice cuts, all the way up to, I even saw some dry aged USDA prime Wagyu there the other day. It was $8 a pound, which is crazy because this guy was $4.99 a pound. And if they would have had the dry age, that would have been $4.99 a pound. And their choice product was $3.99 a pound. So you can see it's kind of good. Now, if you go to your average grocery store and you pick up one of these guys, you can spend up to $10 a pound. My local Publix has it going for $8.99 a pound today on special. It's crazy. This guy, again, 15.7 pounds, USDA prime, went for about $4.99 a pound. With this and a bag of charcoal, I spent about $100. So let's go ahead and let's start talking about the next tip. Okay, so again, this is the entire brisket. This is your point side. This is your flat side. This is the top end. This is what we're gonna go ahead and call the bottom. And this little guy sitting right here is called the decal. It's actually sitting right in here, and you'll notice that it's made this large protrusion right here. That's kind of how you can tell that this is the point, and then this is a little bit thinner, this is the flat. When you buy one of these guys, make sure that you have a nice, thick, pronounced decal. You want to know that all that fat is built into there, because that aids in knowing that there's even extra marbling in there. I have bought smaller briskets, maybe 9 or 10 pounders from Wild Fork, where the decal wasn't so big, and I actually thought it was an entire flat, and when I opened it up, I realized I was wrong. It just had a really small decal, which meant that when I went and I got through cutting the point, it wasn't as tasty as it would have been. It had a lot of that fat still been in there, and a lot of that intramuscular marbling would have been woven in to all of those wonderful meat spaces there. So that's tip 2. Make sure that you've got a nice pronounced decal attached to your product. Okay, tip 3. When you're breaking all this down, you're gonna have a lot of fat left over, and you're gonna have a lot of lean left over. So you wanna try to make it so that you have some pans set aside to put all that stuff in. I'll end up showing you what I'm gonna do with a lot of the scrap here today, but for now, let's go ahead and get into cutting this guy up. All right, so this is our whole brisket, so we want to flip it over and take off the decal. Make sure you're doing this with a really good knife. I've got a Masahiro rose-handled carbon steel boning knife I like to use. Make sure that you also get a lot of the silver skin taken off the bottom. By not taking that off, that means that you are going to have the brisket curl a little bit as it cooks, and we definitely don't want that. So wherever you see any kind of hard fat, you want to go ahead and try to take that off. Get as much of that off as you can. Now, when you flip it over, the goal here is to not only take off that brown layer of fat, it's oxidized fat from the air hitting it, but you want to try to make it so that the flat end stays about 1/3 of an inch, maybe even a little bit thicker on the top, so that way you have that 1/3 of an inch fat cap. And on the point end, you want to try to make it so that there's at least 1/4 of an inch. Now, as I trim this guy, I want to make it clear, even though I've done about 30 of these, I'm not perfect at it at all, and that I do scalp the brisket from time to time, and as you see me go through this, you're going to see that I scalp it a couple of times. But, you know, we ended up with a really good product, and I know scalping isn't the greatest thing to do, so you can see I've got a couple of chunks out there. But I want to let you know that this thing came out really well, and I really did enjoy it. So end up taking the rest of that oxidized fat off. Now, when you're shaping this guy, not only do you want to make sure that the fat is nice and thick in certain areas, but you want to make sure it's nice and streamlined so that as the smoke hits it, it kind of rolls over it. All right, so the next thing we want to go ahead and do is build our seasoning. So I've got some cherry black peppercorns. I've got a grinder that will go ahead and allow me to adjust the grind. So we're looking for number 16 grind, if you guys know what that is. If not, I'll kind of show you what it looks like. We're then going to need some salt, and of course, we're going to need some garlic powder. So the ratio for this is really simple. It is 1 part black pepper, 1 part granulated garlic or garlic powder. I prefer the powder because it's a smaller fine. It's closer to that size I'm looking for. And then half a part of kosher salt. This is the shaker that I use. I'll link it down below. It's wide mouthed at the top, so it allows me to get salt, pepper, and garlic through each individual hole. You know, they do make others that are kind of small and don't work as well, but when you're trying to find a good seasoning cap, this took me a while to find. It's great. I almost thought about making my own. This is great. I'll link it down below. Again, I think it was like $12 or $13 when I bought it, but it's totally well worth it. I use it for all kinds of rubs. So let's go ahead and let's start grinding up our fresh cherry black pepper, add our salt, add our garlic, and let's get that brisket seasoned. All right, and this is what you want the black peppercorns to go ahead and look like. Nice and consistent. This is a Magnum grinder. They don't make them anymore. They're kind of hard to find. They do a really amazing job. They got a great engineering involved in them, and they're very, very consistent, as you can see. Let's go ahead and let's get this brisket seasoned. All right, and there we go. That is our amazing mix of salt, pepper, and garlic. All right, so it's really important here that when you are seasoning this, you get every bit of every side of every corner of every end of every bit. You'll notice that as I'm putting this together, even when I'm flipping it over, I'm reflipping it again to make sure I get all sides. Now we're gonna let this sit here, and we're gonna let everything, all the seasoning suck into all the sides of it. Make sure that you are on a metal rack, that helps. And then we're gonna go ahead and set up the eggs. So let's go. So we spread them all around, and then we're gonna go ahead and fill charcoal right up to the top of our ash bowl here. All right, everybody, so the egg's up to temp. We're sitting right around 300 degrees. We want it to be a little bit less than that. So what we want to do is we want to open up our big green egg app, which we've got right here. There we go. So this is our controller that we have sitting right down here. As you can see, and I'll give you a close-up of that here in a moment. What we want to do is we want to set it up. So we want to go into the controller. We want to go into set temp. I set mine for 265, and I want a pit alert of 20 degrees. So that's my update. I then want to go ahead and I want to set a meat temperature. So we've got meat 1. So we'll just call this brisket, right? If I could spell. So there's that. So that's it. That's how you set it up. So the beautiful thing about this system and the way that it's set up. So I'm going to walk you through this, but I have a really good tutorial. I'm going to pop it right up here that kind of explains all this. So this is basically a remote controlled fan. I have a battery backup sitting in here with some cords. Attached to that, I have a pit temp thermometer that's running into there right now. I then have a meat temp thermometer that I have not put in yet. This thing's designed to go ahead and attach to your Wi-Fi system. So what I have is I have an old cell phone that I literally leave out here like so that it stays attached to my system. Now, I don't technically have to do that. I do that as a precaution. It doesn't happen often, but it has happened before where it's dropped down. So what this guy's gonna do is it's gonna help to regulate my temperature throughout this entire cook. There's a little fan built in here. The fan will spool on when it needs to add air, and if not, it won't. Now, the negative thing about this is what I like to do is I like to take chunks of hardwood and I like to stick them down here. That way, as the coals drop down from the inside of the egg, then I can go ahead and they light on fire. They give in more smoke. It comes out the top, as you can see. It's this wonderful, beautiful blue smoke coming out of there. But as soon as this thing is ready to go, which it just about is, it's just about heat. Yep, it's heat soaked. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get the brisket done, and I'm gonna walk you through what to look for. All right, there we go. So our pit's ready to go. Here's our brisket. We're gonna lay it on very, very close to the front. As the heat comes up from it, it likes to circle up from the back, hit the dome, and run forward. So you'll notice that the temperature that's sitting here is gonna be higher than our probe temperature. And I'm gonna show you that here in a minute. So while this guy is sitting at 275 degrees, our probe temp could be sitting at 265, 255. So what we're going to do now is we are going to drop this. We're going to monitor the app. We're going to come back in an hour. We're going to check on it. If it needs a spritz, it usually doesn't, but if it does, I have got a mixture of Worcestershire and apple cider vinegar and water, all equal parts. We'll spray that all over and we'll let it go. But until then, I'm not going to touch this guy for a while. So let's go ahead and let me show you that app real quick. All right, so as you guys can see, my pit temp is sitting right around 260 or 75 degrees. And on here, it's showing right around 281 degrees. So we're good. We're good on pit temp. They're actually linked. Sometimes they're about 20 degree difference. Sometimes they're not. You'll also notice that my brisket is sitting around 47 degrees, which is normal. So what we want to go ahead and do is just let this guy cook, and we'll go ahead and check on him in an hour or so, and we'll see where he's at. All right, now what we have here is we have all of our beautiful fat left over. Now you can take this, put it in a Ziploc, and pop it in your freezer, or you can go ahead and do this. This is smoked beef tallow. I basically take this stuff right here, I chop it up, I leave it in this pan, I put it on the egg, I let it smoke and render at the same time. I filter it all out, I pop it into one of these jars. This is a pickle jar, I've got a bunch of different jars. And then I add it to my brisket when it's resting, or whatever else you want. I've added this to all kinds of stuff. It's delicious, it gives a great flavor, so I'm gonna walk you through, I'm gonna show you how to do that today. I'm gonna go ahead and pop a thumbnail up right here, where I actually use an entire video to walk you through everything step by step on how to go ahead and build this beautiful product. So let's go. All right, everybody, so here is our fat. Cut it up into like 1/2-inch cube chunks, roundabout way. What we're gonna do, there's our beautiful brisket. It hasn't been on very long. We're gonna take this guy, I'm gonna push this guy forward just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. We're gonna pop this guy back here. We're then gonna close it and we're gonna let him smoke until he's done. All right, everybody, so we are sitting right around 265. Okay, our guy is sitting right in here at 140. He's nowhere near done. I mean, he's tight as a rock. We got a little, yeah, nice and tight. Nothing's really going on. You can sort of start to see our smoking that we going on in here with our fat. So we're gonna let this guy keep going. Fun little thing I want to show you. I like to do this. I like to take wood chunks and pop them into here, right? So that I can get extra wood fun flavor, and I just pop it in there all the way and it kind of looks like that. And then I'm gonna put this guy back on here, close it up, put this back on, and then that'll be the end of that. So, all right, everybody, so next on our docket, we have, what are we gonna go ahead and do with all this beef scrap? My favorite thing to do with this of all time is to freeze it. And once I have enough of it, I like to go ahead and make a bunch of burgers. You'll notice that we've got a great amount of lean to fat ratio, 1/2 and 1/2 on a lot of pieces. In some instances, we actually have probably too much lean, but that's honestly fine because we need all of this fat in here so that we can get a lot of good compaction when we're putting our burgers together. So I'm gonna go ahead and put right up here a video to how this works and how you can go ahead and make your own burgers at home. So go ahead and check that out. That's gonna be that. All right, everybody, so it's been like 3 hours. We are at 176 degrees. Sorry about the dog. We're gonna hit our first stall. Let's see how long it takes to go ahead and get through it. Here is our fat, looking fantastic. So let's go ahead and let this guy keep going. All right, everybody, so we're at 186. Everything's going quite well, as you can see. Oh yeah, we're getting there, look at that. End over here is a little hard, but you get into the center. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh yeah, look at that. That right there. That is what we're looking for. Oh yeah, that's great. These look good too. Go ahead and move those around a little bit. So basically when you're done here, you'll have something called cracklins. Cracklins are amazing. You've never had them? They're basically like slowly rendered out fat chunks that crystallize, turn into a texture of like a chewy chip. And these are almost done, so they're gonna be amazing. All right, let's let this go until we hit 195 degrees. And then we're gonna go ahead and do our next step. All right, everybody, it's time. We have reached 196 degrees, which is great. That looks great. So what we wanna go ahead and do is we're gonna use the method called the foil boat, which there's a gentleman on YouTube named Bradley Robinson. He runs Chud's Barbecue. I'll link it down below. He kind of came up with this method. He's got a lot of barbecue experience in his background, and he sort of figured out a way to make the bark amazing and get it to go ahead and sweat and break down. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to pull this guy off of here, put him on here, wrap him up into what looks like a little boat, put it back on here, and let it run up until it hits 204 degrees. And then we're going to go ahead and go on to our next step. But this is the big step right here. I think this is step number 7 or 8. I don't remember. I'll put it up here online. The foil boat method. It's fantastic. You got to use it. All right, and there we go. We're nice and wrapped up all the way around. We've got a little bit of fat down there. We might throw a little bit more, but right now I want to go ahead and let this guy finish up. Let's get him up another 10 degrees, and then we'll come and check on him. All right, boys and girls, here we go. There's our lovely smoked beef towel. There's our cracklins. Now we need to go ahead and strain this guy out. I'm going to use a bunch of coffee filters, pour it through to remove all the sediment, and then as it cools down, everything else will go in a mason jar, and we'll pop it in. This is a great, extremely high cholesterol snack. At this point, throw a bunch of salt or whatever seasoning you want on them and just start eating them. They're amazing. They're so much better than the ones you can buy at the grocery store. All right, everybody. We have hit 204 degrees. Our meteorite looks great. Now what we need to go ahead and do is give it a check. Oh, yeah. Oh, perfect. Oh, my goodness. This could actually be good. It's getting a little tight yet. So over here, money. This is the point. This is amazing. It's going in like butter. Over here, this is the flat. It always takes longer. We're going to let it go up another probably 2 degrees, and then we're going to pull it, and then we're going to let it go. But if you look in here, you can see all of our beautiful little fat just sitting in there. Looks fantastic. So I'm going to give it another, maybe 10-15 minutes, get it up to 204 per this thermometer, and then we're good. All right, everybody, we are at 207 degrees, and I am going to guess that this guy is done. So let's try it out, shall we? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at that. All the way in. 207. That is the magic number. Let's go ahead and get him off. Let's get him on here. It's starting to rain. We got to go ahead and get it into step 10. This is going to sit in here. It says 150, but it's really 140. It's going to sit in here for probably, I don't know, close to 12 hours. No, more than that. Probably closer to 24 hours. Almost 24 hours, maybe like 20 hours. And then we're going to pull it out, and we're going to slice it up, and we're going to have some sandwiches. So I'll see you guys in about 20 hours. All right, everyone, and here is our brisket. I unfortunately lost the footage. Can't find it anywhere, so I just went ahead and took a picture of it so that I can show you what it looks like. Isn't it nice? So the brisket came out amazing. That extra fat really helped. As you can see, the smoke ring was wonderful. The burnt ends were some of the best ones I've ever had. Anyways, if you guys like this kind of content, please go ahead and share it with your friends and family. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that like button. And if you come here every weekend and you are really enjoying this, please go ahead and consider hitting that subscribe button. And as always, have a fantastic barbecue week.